edition of Video Fuel. From now on, we'll be shooting out some videos once a month to do a little encouragement and equipping. Today, we're going to be talking about church work isn't easy. I think sometimes we have this idea or the concept that if I'm serving at church, that it's going to be easy. And one of the things that I think that we all should be aware of is that it's not always easy. It's not perfect, and it's going to be difficult from time to time. And it's not just doing something. Sometimes we say, well, I just do the donuts, or I just do the check-in table, or I just hold babies. Everything that you do is a vital part of our ministry, and it helps people take steps towards God. And so everything that we do is super important, and what you're doing is serving in ministry, and church work is not easy. So as we go through this, we're going to share a story this morning about Moses, who is one of the best leaders that we can read about in Scripture. And he's leading a group of people, and as he goes through leading a group of people, sometimes things go well, sometimes things don't go so well. Sometimes they do what he says, sometimes they don't do what he says. And as we read through a couple of different pieces of this Scripture, it's going to we're going to ask 4 different questions. And I want you to ask yourself these 4 questions as we go through this morning. The first question is this: who's with me? None of us want to feel alone. We always want to know who's with us. We want to know that we're making progress together. And as we read through this, you will see him ask this very question. So Exodus chapter 33, starting in verse 12, this is what it says. Moses said to the Lord, "You have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know who you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me." His question was, you've been telling me that I'm going to lead these people. You've been telling me here's where we're going to go and here's what we're going to do. But the question that I have for you, God, is who's with me? And I think that that's a question that we all want to ask from time to time, is who's with me? And so as you tap people on the shoulder and ask them to join you as they serve on your team, whether that's set up and tear down, whether that's the tech team, whether that's check-in, whether that's in children's ministry, I think 2 things. You need to ask people, come go with me, but you also need to know who is with you. And so if you're serving on a team, tell your team leader, hey, I got your back, I'm with you, I support you. And as we make progress in our personal journeys and in our journey as a church, I think that you will begin to discover, hey, it's nice to know that you're not alone. It's nice to know that somebody's with you. So the first question, who's with me? I think that's a great question. Second question is, am I pleasing God? And sometimes we try to do things pleasing people around us, but the bigger question is, am I pleasing God? And we see the same thing taking place in verse 13. And here's what it says in verse 13. If you are pleased with me, this is Moses speaking again, if you are pleased with me, teach me your ways, so I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. And Moses is saying, God, show me your ways. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is pleasing to you, and I want to make sure that as we continue as a group of people that we find your favor. And so we don't need to find the favor of the people around us. We don't need to find favor from the people who attend our church. We need to find favor from God. So God, please show us your ways, and we'll respond by saying yes to you. And I heard somebody say this before. I'm not really sure who it's from. I think maybe Rick Warren, but he says, you don't achieve ministry, you receive ministry. And so many times we think, if we can just do this, or if we can just do that, then we'll be accomplishing ministry. And our real question should be, God, send us the ministry that you want us to have. Send us the people that you want us to have. Send us the impact that you want us to have. And it's not what we do, it's what you choose to do through us. And so we're reminded of that. And I want to read you another interesting scripture that speaks very clearly about this. And it comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. Look what it says. It says, therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, do not lose heart. The ministry comes from God, from God's mercy, from God's grace. It's not something that we do. It's not something that we can do. It comes from God. We are in ministry because of God's mercy. And so there isn't anything that we can do. God doesn't need us, but He allows us to partner with Him to impact our community and impact our world. So it's not what we can do, it's what God can do through us. And so when we rely more on our own ability than we rely on God's ability, all we're doing is doing what we can do, not what God can do. And so our question, number 2, should be, am I pleasing God? The third question is, will I seek to follow Jesus? And you've heard me talk about a dog that we recently got, so I was going to show you our dog here real quick. This is Rory, and I don't know how much you know about dogs, but dogs are kind of crazy. Ooh, and she just knocked over my computer. Dogs are kind of crazy because they do weird things. One of the things that they do is they eat nasty stuff. They eat their throw up and they eat their poo, and then they want to give you a kiss after they eat that. Okay, I'm going to get rid of her because she's getting in the way. And so you're like, after you eat that stuff, I don't want you to give me a kiss. I don't want you to kiss me because you just have eaten your poo. And what's funny about that is that's how you and I sometimes relate to God. We say to God, I'm going to eat poo, but then I'm going to show up on Sunday and kiss you. And it doesn't matter how I live my life during the week, but on Sunday I'm going to come and say I love you and please forgive me. And what I want to say is, will I seek to follow Jesus? And it's more than just Sunday. It's more than just giving a little bit of time. It's about giving your life. And Moses gives us some more insight into that. And starting in verse 14, this is what it says. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. God said to Moses, I'll go with you. It's going to be me going with you, and you will not be alone. And then look what it says. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us from here. If your presence doesn't go with us, don't send us from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? And basically what Moses is saying to us and to God, if you don't send your presence, then we'll just stay right here. We're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to accomplish anything. Nobody's going to be able to tell that we're any different than anybody else. And so the question that you and I should be asking is, will we seek to follow Jesus? And if He doesn't send His presence, if we don't work in His power and His authority, the things that we accomplish really won't amount to much. The fourth question that I want to ask you is, what's next? And I think that's a question that we should always ask, because we should be looking forward. What's God going to do? What is He going to use us to accomplish? What kinds of things are we going to be able to do? What's next is the question. Because if we're not looking towards what's next, if we're not thinking about what can we do next to impact the world, what can God do to use us next, we become a monument, and we become history. And we want to think forward. Sure, through the course of the past 3 years, God's accomplished some great things in LifePoint. But I don't want us to dwell on the past. We should celebrate the past, but we should say, what's next? What are we going to do next? And as we continue in our story, verse 18, Exodus chapter 33, verse 18, it says, then Moses said, now show me your glory. He's like, okay, God, now show me what you want to do next. Show me where you want to go next. And so that's the question that we should be asking, and I want us to deal with that just a little bit in this session of Fuel. What's next? Where are we going to go next? And here's what we're going to do next.